Halloween
forever.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving week to you, Stephen.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, Brian.
You know, this festive occasion, it always reminds me of that old Thanksgiving phrase, that old Thanksgiving adage that they always say. You know the one I'm talking about?
No, what is it, Brian?
You know that one old adage they always say around Thanksgiving time? They say, give a pilgrim some corn, feed him for a day.
Uh-huh.
Teach a pilgrim to grow corn, and he'll murder you and steal your land. Welcome, boys and ghouls, to a very festive Minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
We are here. It's the week of Thanksgiving, guys. Kicking off the holiday season. I'm drinking a little yummy festive cocktail. Listen, the turkey's defrosting. We are getting ready for just the most American of holidays because it's literally about getting drunk and overeating. And that's why I love me some motherfucking Thanksgiving, guys. So we're getting into it, and we thought what better time than to talk about this brand new feature film hitting theaters 1 week before Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about a movie called Thanksgiving from 2023, directed by one Mr. Eli Roth. And we went and saw this in the theater.
Yeah, we got our butts
which is
out.
Kind of a rarity. We got our butts out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, with how quickly everything hits streaming nowadays, it's very rare that you need to go to the theater. But like, this is time sensitive. You know, it's Thanksgiving week. The movie's called Thanksgiving. Let's go.
We have a sense of urgency for you out there, for the boys and ghouls out in internet land. Me and Steve went and saw this movie. We're going to talk about it here in a hot damn second. Before we do, we got a couple other things we got to do at the top of the show. First of all, any festive beverages you're enjoying to get you in this Thanksgiving spirit?
I don't know how festive as it is. It's close, but I'm just enjoying one of my classic Nitro Rouges from the Castile Brewery. That's all.
Yeah. That's a perennial Steve favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Love that one. I would say that's a festive beer.
I mean, I think it's pretty close. It's got cherries in it, so that's like almost like a cranberry.
Mm-hmm. The cranberry of Europe. That's what they call the cherry. Yep. The cranberry of Belgium. I'm doing kind of the opposite. Instead of drinking a fancy Belgian beer, I got home, so I spent the day here. Full disclosure, we're recording this actually on late in the evening on Saturday before it's recorded or before we release it on Monday. And I spent the whole dang day, besides sneaking out and going to see a movie, this here movie we're going to talk about today. I spent the day at my in-laws' house with, just a bajillion people, made 15 pounds of mashed potatoes. That's not an exaggeration. We made 15 pounds of mashed potatoes. They were gone.
Oof.
My wife has a very large Irish and Polish family, and potatoes is a whole ass food group for them. Yeah. So they get after some mashed potatoes, and I make a good mashed potato. So I made 15 pounds of mashed potatoes and, like, honestly, God, 3/4 of a gallon of gravy. Shit was gone. They make 2 like 20-pound turkeys.
Holy
That's how
Jesus.
many people are there. It's humongous. They do a lot. They got a big old family, and they always do Thanksgiving the Saturday before Thanksgiving because everybody, it's too hard to get that big a group together on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, to get all that travel in.
Yeah. So I was over there, like I said, cooking and eating, hanging out, merriment with the family over there. Had a couple 2-tree curs, a few yellow jackets over there. And I got home and I chugged a cup of coffee and I said, you know what I need? I need to get out a Brighton hot dog shop cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to fill that son of a bitch up about 1/2 full of bourbon, Wild Turkey 101, and then just dump a can of Canada Dry ginger ale on top of it. Zero sugars because I'm a health freak, guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just getting after a bourbon and ginger ale here. Nice little nightcap. Figure by the time I finish this and we're done recording this podcast, your boy will be all toasted up, and then I'll just slide into brain death for the next 8 hours. So
yeah, if the audience is lucky, you'll just fall asleep in the Discord, and people can just watch you sleep. Bonus content.
That would be a first. It's almost happened before, never happened so far. Let's see if we can get that done tonight, boys and ghouls. All right. Couple of things before we jump into this here flick. First of all, as always, if you want to keep track of us on other areas of the internet, mainly on the social medias like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and TikTokies and all that sort of stuff, go follow us on there. We're Halloween is Forever in most of them. You can just search Halloween is Forever. You'll find a little kind of pixelated pixel art pumpkin guy Steve made. That's on there. You'll know that's us. We got some fun stuff happening over there. First of all, if you've got suggestions, because we're getting in, like I said, we're getting in the dang old holiday spirit starting today. So if you've got any holiday horror movies, it doesn't have to be Thanksgiving themed. By the time we do another episode, it'll be at past Thanksgiving. We're talking more about them winter holidays, Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all that stuff. Not enough Hanukkah and Kwanzaa horror movies, but if you know one, throw it our direction. Or if you just got some sort of other, Christmas themed or New Year's or whatever horror movie that you want us to talk about, or you think we should check out, because there's like 40 new ones out there, and I'd love your help sifting through all the absolute fucking dregs, I'm sure, that are out there as well. Send them our way. We always appreciate those suggestions. And it might be very, very relevant, because before we know it, we'll be in December and we'll be ready for our December showdown episode. For the yins who are new to the old podcast, this is how it goes. We got a tasty new sumptuous, unctuous, I would go as far as to say, bit of business every Monday when a new podcast comes out for you. We do a Minisode every single Monday, except for the first Monday of the month. We do what's called a showdown episode. Here's what happens with that. You got Steve, you got your boy, the champ, reigning champ. Don't get it twisted, guys. Then we have a guest, and we all take a topic, and we got to pick a movie that's associated with that topic. Where's that topic come from? That comes from our social media friends and listeners. We have a big old spinny ass wheel normally, and we spin it, we get 3, and then we throw it out on the social medias, and then you pick from one of the 3 topics. The topics are like subgenres or performers or whatever, that sort of thing. But we do something a little different in December. We do something called Secret Satan, which is kind of like Secret Santa, except for we hail Satan. He doesn't get enough attention this time of year. He gets all this attention around Halloween time, right? Everybody's out there hailing Satan. And then as soon as Halloween time's over, you just forget about him till next year. All year long, honor his infernal majesty. We do it, especially during the holiday season, yins guys.
Why do you think he's so mean? It's because he ain't getting Christmas gifts.
It's because yins forget about him this on November 1st, and that's some bullshit. So we do something called Secret Satan in December, and we've done it a few different ways. Here's how we're going to do it this year. We are going to just rely solely on our social media friends and listeners to suggest to us movies that each of us have to defend.
Well,
myself, Steve.
More specifically, our Patreon.
Yes, we're going to take it from our listeners, but if you are a patron on Patreon, if you have done the deed, you've went to patreon.com/Halloween is Forever and signed up for either of our tiers on Patreon, which we'll talk about what you get otherwise here in a second when that happens. If yins give us a suggestion, we are going to primarily source these from our patrons. So that's going to be something that you're going to want to take advantage of super dang quick. You could literally say, hey, Steve, I want you to defend Christmas Evil, right? We have not talked about that movie really. I don't think a dedicated episode, certainly. So there's a high degree of likelihood that that's going to happen. Now, if you say, Brian, you got to defend Santa's sleigh, I'll say, hot damn, I would love to do that. However, we have done an episode on that.
Right.
We have done an episode on that movie before, so that one is off the table. And if that's the case, we'll tell you, right? But we are going to source these specifically from our listeners, but specifically our patrons over on Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, like I said, we got one of those. Steve, tell them what the fuck you get when you hang out over there.
Yeah, so, you log on to Patreon, and we got the 2 tiers. We got a $3 tier, which is kind of like the introductory. You dip your toes in, you see what's going on. You get some extra reviews. You get some extra content. Sometimes you get the episodes early.
You get slippery sweet recos.
Yeah, all kinds of recos. Every month you get recos, and some like watch outs. Like,
yeah,
you know, like don't watch maybe
anti-recos.
Don't watch this. It's bad. You get some of those.
We get a lot of those slide into the DMs. We get a lot of our friends over on like Instagram that slide in and go, "Hey, did you see this movie? Should I check it out?" Or, "Hey, you should watch this movie. I just watched it. It's yummy." So those are all good. And Steve transcribes that into something digestible and readable and puts it on the Patreon for you.
Yeah. So you go on there, you get that in the $3 tier. You get a couple other 2-3 things. You get to see like my fun art projects when I decide to put them up. You know, I did it. I did the. Did you get the
Thanksgiving one?
Yeah, the Thanksgiving poster.
Or not Thanksgiving. I'm watching Thanksgiving in the background right now, and I'm really having a hard time separating Thanksgiving from Thanksgiving. Yes, I did. That was very cool. I saw you post it today. Like I said, I was running around like a maniac, and I shared it to our story as well. But yeah, Steve did some cool Thanksgiving Eli Roth 2023 Thanksgiving the movie art.
Yeah,
which you can check out on our Instagram page.
Yeah, they gave out free posters for coloring, so I scanned it into Photoshop and colored it in Photoshop. So I did that.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, that makes more sense. Yes, I didn't get the whole context there, but it's pretty rad.
Yeah. So yeah, you get to see that, but the other thing you get is our $5, and that's the important one. That's the one you really want. You get to log on to our Discord. You can watch episodes happen live. We got people watching us happen live right now.
That's where you get all the sexy goodies there. That's where, we have patrons sitting here watching me drink bourbon out of a hot dog shop cup right now.
Yeah.
Does that sound appetizing to you? Is that going to get you horned up? You can do that for real. I'll let you watch me drink bourbon out of a hot dog shop cup.
I guarantee we have listeners in the Midwest, and they would love to see what a hot dog shop cup looks like.
Now, this isn't the new Seinfeld one, guys. I would love to have grabbed this one, but this is a 4th of July one. As you can see, it's extremely patriotic. But as you can see here, guys, whole family watching fireworks. They're all hot dogs. Every single one of them. Even the dog's a hot dog, which is a little redundant. And then you got this creeper on a bike. But if you want all that hot Brighton hot dog shop content, that's where you need to go, because you need to be on the Discord.
Yeah. So jump on the Discord, jump on that $5 tier. And then the other thing you get is the monthly exclusive podcast, Family is Forever.
Now, I hate this. I take exception to this. I don't like it. I like the podcast. I like recording it, but it's really not fun for me because I got to watch every single one of the goddamn Fast and the Furious movies. I started a new job this week, actually last week, but I was meeting some people this week, and I met someone, and she was telling me how she loves the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yes.
And then we became immediate enemies, but then friends after that, because she did admit, but then we went down a rabbit hole because we were with another coworker, and he was pulling as many really crude, distasteful Paul Walker jokes off his phone as possible, which was very funny because it was upsetting to her. And yeah, we just basically ripped on Paul Walker for about half an hour. So again, I'm joking about this like this is a fun thing, but actually it's ruining my life slowly. And if you would like to see my personal and professional life now completely unravel before you on a podcast as a result of a psyop relating to the Fast and Furious franchise, come on over and check it out. Yeah. It's probably a lot of fun to listen to. Not pleasurable for me personally.
Yeah, it's important to. I mean, I'm happy to know that our agents have also infiltrated your new job, but I also want to note that you have stirred up our patrons, and one in particular who is just really, really after you for what you did last week with the what did I do with the Halloween puppy movie.
Guys, this is what happens. You let an outside dog inside, he's going to piss on the carpet.
Yeah.
All right. It's just going to happen. So you make me the champ. I'm going to make you watch Halloween puppy movies.
Yeah. So, in our Discord right now, they're just talking about how you deserve having this new person in your life who loves Fast and Furious movies.
I am going to infiltrate her life by sending her subliminal messages and directions and like coding things in emails, work related stuff, but slowly pushing her towards a Halloween puppy, aka the Great Halloween Puppy Adventure, aka the Magic Puppy from 2012. I'm going to slowly push her in that direction and ultimately achieve my revenge that way. That's my plan. We'll see how it goes, but I'll keep you posted on that.
Sounds like mutually assured destruction, but whatever. Coming up in November, we have Fast 5. So
yeah, I honestly hate it. We were gonna record that episode last week, and I was traveling for work, and it got too busy. I really not looking forward to it. Like, I'm genuinely not looking forward to watching this movie. But if you want to, share in my pain and delight in Steve's pleasure. Or delight in my pain and share in Steve's pleasure. It's probably reversed. Go ahead down onto the patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. For $5 a month, you can get that exclusive podcast and a bunch of other fun stuff on there as well. All right. Now, let's get into the feature presentation here, guys. So a lot of folks, I doubt a lot of folks in our circle here, our listeners, they probably all know this, but for those of you who are dabbling, we like to bring new horror nerds into the fray as well. So if you're just dabbling in the world of holiday horror, you might not know this is the case. First of all, Eli Roth, I'm pretty sure everybody knows who Eli Roth is, kind of broke onto the scene with Hostel, but Cabin in the Woods, like he is a well-known Cabin Fever, not Cabin in the Woods. I always do that. Those are two very different movies.
Indeed.
Cabin in the Woods is way better than anything Eli Roth has ever made and probably will ever make. I genuinely like Eli Roth, but Cabin Fever, very different movie. Long time genre guy. If you don't have a frame of reference for him, he's the guy who hit people in the head with a bat in Inglourious Bastards. That was him in an acting capacity. Anyway, longtime horror, genre director. I would go as far as to say kind of a scholar of the genre.
Yeah.
This is his directorial project here, but there's a little bit more history to it. Going back to, and forgive me because I watch this in the theater and I usually take quite extensive notes ahead of, sometimes too extensive ahead of these recordings, but I watch this in the theater. So obviously I'm not going to be that fucking dork writing notes in the theater, nor am I going to take notes on my phone. Cause if somebody had their phone on the whole time, I would want to punch them in the head. So I'm doing some of this from memory, but I believe from 2007, right, was Grindhouse, right? The Grindhouse double feature with Death Proof and Planet Terror from Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, it was 2007 because I specifically remember still being in college, and I went with all of my like film school buddies. Like obviously you're gonna put a Robert Rodriguez Tarantino double feature. Like they put it in the theaters near us. Yeah, and like out in the middle of Penn State, like that felt a little uncommon to get like the true double feature experience. So we're like, fuck yeah, we're all going to go see that, and we all went. And then in between they had these fake trailers, and Eli Roth had directed the Thanksgiving one.
Yep. I remember going to that as well. I was also in college. Group of friends went, had a fucking blast. And I remember specifically us really loving the trailers as being like one of the highlights of going to this, right? And one of them was for very much a 70s exploitation type. It was mimicked to, it was shot to mimic a 70s exploitation, type film trailer for a fictional film called Thanksgiving. And it was, of course, kind of a serial killer type of thing that dressed as a pilgrim. And it was pretty extended. It was like a 2-minute trailer, really equated to what was, a short, little tiny short film. And they had several of these throughout the double feature. So we're approaching 20 years later. This is the kind of culmination of people probably asking him once a week for the last almost 20 years, when are you going to actually make Thanksgiving? Yeah. And he finally talked a studio into funding this, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, it was such a good trailer. Like it was it probably was the best trailer, although like there's definite love for the Rob Zombie one as well, because it was like the werewolf women of
SS.
Werewolf Women of the SS, I think it was what it was.
That's right. Yeah.
All Rob Zombie did with that, but though, was turn it into a song. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there's a Werewolf Women of the SS song.
And I feel like that's something that comes up pretty often is like, when are you going to make this? When are you going to make this? And like, you know, Nazi werewolves is it's a little bit of a harder sell, right? Than a holiday slasher movie, especially right now. But yeah, so it you know, it happened. It came to fruition, which was pretty cool. And interestingly enough, although it's not a 70s style exploitation thing that's shot to mimic that time frame, that probably would be a little heavy-handed. And like initially I was kind of like, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was like, oh, I wish it was shot like that. But it was like, that would be pretty lame to shoot it like that. Like you really want to do something. Like, I think the approach that he took, and I listened to a couple of little interviews here and there and just like more sound clips from Eli Roth. And his whole idea was like, no, I want to make a, you know, a slasher movie, a good slasher movie, a fun slasher movie that has some, you know, elements that'll stick that are associated with Thanksgiving, because there kind of really isn't one, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, aside from there's Blood Rage, which does not feel like a Thanksgiving movie for the most part, because it's filmed in Florida, you know, probably in the summer. Like there's nothing, you know, aside from like the weird pumpkin pie type stuff, and like they're like wearing occasional sweatshirts. Right. Yeah. Like, so there's some Thanksgiving, but it doesn't feel like a Thanksgiving film.
Nah.
Thanksgiving, those movies are fucking ridiculous and silly, and they're not like, they're not polished enough. Like the acting is fucking, like, so they're not polished enough for a wide audience. Like we enjoy them,
right?
Because they're stupid and silly, and they have boobs in the first 5 minutes, and you're like, yeah, boobs.
I forgot when I put this on as soon as we started recording, and I forgot that whole early scene with the pilgrim lady with the giant jugs bouncing through the woods as she's running away. I was like, I just was like,
but yeah, so like I understand, like Eli Roth being a scholar of the horror genre, he wants to put out something that like it will stand as a tentpole of, this is the Thanksgiving holiday horror movie you watch, because and there just isn't enough out there right now to really challenge that either. So like you'll double feature Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving together probably.
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that for sure. They're both pretty silly but in very different ways. Let me do this. Let me read the quick, you know, couple line plot summary here on IMDb, because I think it's pretty good. After a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy, a mysterious Thanksgiving-inspired killer terrorizes Plymouth, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the infamous holiday. I don't know if I would call Thanksgiving an infamous holiday. It's just a very well-known, widely celebrated holiday. But otherwise
depends on.
Oh yeah, I guess it depends. It depends. Yeah, it's historically speaking. Yes.
If you're of native descent, it's pretty infamous. It's not.
It is pretty infamous. You're right. I spoke too soon there. Yeah, you're right. It's certainly infamous to quite a number of people. But it really doesn't play on those elements of it.
No.
It's not like it's like a Native American, you know, spirit coming back for revenge or something like that. It is just like it plays on the tropes of the modern American Thanksgiving celebration and tradition a little bit, but ultimately it's more of like an anti-capitalist type of message.
Yeah, it's
anti-capitalism, anti-materialism, more type of message than anything.
Which I thought it was interesting. So I don't know if you went back and watched the original Thanksgiving trailer.
I did. Okay. Yeah.
So like in that trailer, and we can talk about how there's differences, because there are some glaring ones, I think. But one of the ones is like in the parade scenes of the trailer, they have like the cartoonish, like, you know, offensive representation of natives as like white people dressed up as natives, and like they have like a big almost like the Cleveland Indians mascot head, like dancing down the streets. But like in this film, there's like absolutely no native representation, because they're like, I don't know if it bothered me or not, because like, one, it's not that movie. Like you said, it's not about like a native spirit coming back and taking revenge on the settlers of Plymouth, which I think is also kind of a cool movie that could, that could be done. But it's much more about the anti-consumerism, anti-capitalism.
Yeah, it's weird. So I have some thoughts about the direction that this movie went, and I literally saw it today, right? So
Right.
I don't know that I have a super fully formed idea in my mind of how I feel about this, but so a little bit of background might be relevant. And I mentioned it at the top of the at the top of the episode. I personally am a fan of Eli Roth. I wouldn't say I'm a giant fan of his movies. Like and what I mean by that is I have a lot of respect for him as like a genre historian. He's an extreme, like if you ever heard him give interviews, or, I listened to him not that long ago on the Quentin Tarantino podcast, or Quentin Tarantino's, what's it called?
I don't know. I know what you're talking about, though, but it's his,
whatever the fuck his podcast is. Yeah.
It doesn't need promotion.
So movie archives or whatever it's called.
He has way more listeners than us. It doesn't need promotion.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino doesn't need our help. But the point is, he was on that. I've listened to him on other podcasts. I've listened to him give interviews and stuff like that. And he feels, and I truly believe he's a very genuine, lifelong genre nerd, right? He loves this stuff. He has a huge affinity for 70s, and in 80s and 90s, but really going back to like 70s exploitation type, like just sleazeball movies, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what you've kind of come to expect from him a little bit. This movie feels like it was a little bit of a give and take, where I truly believe if they gave him carte blanche to just do whatever he wanted, this movie would have been a lot sleazier, and a lot more uncomfortable and grimier, and more sexually charged and uncomfortable and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I am curious about that though, because going back to the original Thanksgiving trailer, it is in fucking insane what they do in those 2.5 minutes, and it honestly started feeling like Terrifier 2 at times.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yeah,
why do I like, and it also brought up that whole problem in my own brain of like, why do I love this? Why is this so funny to me? But then I hate Terrifier 2. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's only 2 minutes, but
well, I immediately compared it in my brain as well. So I thought to myself, at first I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get the sleaziness and the Grindhouse feel that we got in the trailer, in the short film, whatever you want to call it, in the trailer. And then I got to start thinking about, because there is a little bit of boundary pushing in this movie. Like there's some mean spirited things in Thanksgiving. But it definitely feels like the whole thing was a bit of a give and take, and it led me to like down the ultimate resolution in my brain that like this is got some money behind it, right? This is a horror film that is being released the weekend before a holiday. It's got some expensive talent behind it from a performer standpoint. And this is going to make some fucking money in the box office. I've no doubt this is going to be the case, right? So I think what it ultimately came down to is like they kind of gave him like, you can do this and this, but it felt like a little bit of it was mildly sterilized, right? They do mimic a few of the more shocking things that they do in the trailer, which we'll talk about as we get into the movie. They do bring them to life in this movie, because I think fans would have felt a little cheated if they didn't. But they did more sterilized versions of what you saw or what was alluded to in the trailer.
Right. Yeah. It's weird because it is sterilized. It has this, kind of, I almost read it as maturity. Like, is Eli Roth like mature as a filmmaker now.
No, I don't think so. I really don't. I think it's the other way around.
But then,
but
I read because like a lot of the dialogue, like if you go back to the dialogue of Cabin Fever, it is just up and down homophobia, fucking like dog shit, edgelordy shit. And then like even 10 years ago, The Green Inferno, that movie is like edgelord fucking cannibal shit. And a lot of people hate it. You know, his movies are polarizing that way. He was kind of supposed to be our Tarantino of horror, is what he was kind of supposed to be, you know, as he went along his career. But this film, it feels like I was confused. Like, is he matured? But then you get to the feet stuff at the end. I was like, no, he's not matured. He's just reined back for some reason. He's just pulled it back.
I think it's more he's reined back. Yeah. Like now I have no doubt that he looks at some of those elements in like Cabin Fever and goes like, "Ooh, I wish I would like to undo that if I could." But I think in this instance, here's how how it came across to me is, so this is meant to make some money in the box office. This is not a niche film that, you know, is getting released at a weird time or getting a limited run or is going to straight to Shudder exclusive, anything like this. This is something they want to get teenagers in the seats for, right? This is hey, let's go out. A group of friends go out and see this wacky Thanksgiving horror movie. So I think what was done is it wasn't necessarily sterilized. I mean, you could maybe say that, but I think what kind of happened is, and I'm seeing this with a bunch of different horror movies right now, and I'm going to try to not say this and sound like, I'm going to try to sound as little boomerish as I can right now, because like, you know, full disclosure here for those of you who are new to the podcast, Steve and I, like, we're in our late 30s, right? We're not young kids by any stretch of the imagination anymore. And this movie is definitely right to get, you know, teens and 20 somethings right out to the theater.
Right.
There are sensibilities that I have that are clear in the industry right now that are like just detour signs for that younger audience. And one is anything sexual is really, and I'm not talking about like hard R intense, you know, I'm not talking about like sexual violence necessarily. Maybe you could argue that that's the case, but like really anything like, I'm trying to avoid saying a particular phrase, but I'm just going to say, like, kids nowadays are kind of prudish when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to see sexually charged things in horror.
Yeah.
It makes them uncomfortable, as it probably should. Right. But that's kind of why I like it, because it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the reason. Like that's why I like movies I talk about that I can't trust.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've seen it described
and this movie felt. Yeah.
I've seen it described in a different way, though. Like, it's not just that they're prudish and it makes it uncomfortable for them, but because they're so overexposed to sexualized stuff everywhere, it means nothing to them. So okay. I understand what you're saying, because I have the same thing of like, when we see like boobs in a movie, we're like, oh no, it's a little taboo, you know, like they're showing us something taboo that like, you know, you couldn't watch, but like, because they're so screen addicted and like inundated with, you know, sexualized shit everywhere. And like porn is like one click away. It doesn't add anything to the movie for them. So it doesn't help it or hurt it, like one way or other. So they just rather not see it because they see it everywhere else.
I could see that too. Right. And I'm sure there's no hard, fast, you know, situation that's happening here. Like, I think, so the reason I said this is like, you know, I had a little bit of a drive to my in-laws' house. I was actually meeting my, you know, family out there. So like I was by myself. So this is obviously not something I would be able to listen to with my kids in the car, but I was listening to a couple other like reviews and like short, you know, podcasts where people were talking about this movie, because there's not a lot out about it yet because it just came out a couple days ago. And a few of them were podcasts by, that were definitely younger hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just got this take, like I kind of got this very clear take from them that like they don't want that type of stuff in their movies. And
mm-hmm.
it's like they kind of look down on movies that lean in hard on those types of things, which I guarantee you 10 years from now, let alone 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be a pretty clear cut, I guess, discussion around why these trends go up and down in horror, and why a particular generation looks for this versus another one looks for, something else. So like, this is something that is developing that we don't understand, and that frankly we're behind the curve on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're too old. We're too old to understand why younger kids like the things or dislike the things they do.
Yeah.
And it's old man yelling at cloud.
Right.
You know what I mean? To say one way or the other. But for me as like a seasoned, kind of old, I say older, but yeah, I mean, I'm in my late 30s, older compared to probably the target audience for this movie. It did feel a little Mickey Mouse sterilized at times.
Yeah. Yeah. It does feel a little sterilized. And also it feels more wrong that it's coming from Eli Roth, because he built his career off like the most shocking edgelord stuff that you could get away that Lionsgate would put out, like,
yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Well, and things I feel like now, like there is like these like the target audience for this, because I can't keep saying these kids because I sound so boomer right now. I'm gonna fucking puke on myself. But like the target demographic for this movie were raised on Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a little bit more of I think they're coming to horror for different things, but this is like a weird mix because it does have some pretty mean-spirited violence. And it's interesting to me that like that is not viewed in the same way as something, especially when you're talking about a slasher movie. Like a slasher movie, there's a pretty well-established set of tropes. And when you have a slasher movie that really adheres to most of those, and this really feels like a 90s teen slasher, except for the fact that everyone feels just completely asexual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only difference. So it does stick out to me as like a sore thumb as somebody who grew up on a different, an entirely different. And I mean, I understand the social value of not, making sexual content taboo. And like, maybe it's because this generation is more open about that. Great. Like that's a lovely thing from a societal standpoint, but it feels strangely, I don't know, catering or pandering is the word I'm looking for when you're talking about like what feels like a bit of a throwback slasher.
Yeah. Eli Roth was definitely like building a throwback slasher in this, like there's so much like DNA of My Bloody Valentine in this movie.
My Bloody Valentine for sure. And like, there's definitely some elements of even like, I Know What You Did Last Summer and stuff that, I identified My Bloody Valentine, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then I even got like the opening scene with the dinners. I was like, is this going to be a Santa sleigh situation? Okay. So I need your help on this too. And we haven't talked about the cast yet, but I do want to jump into this a little bit because I showed up a couple minutes late.
Yeah.
I was making 15 pounds of mashed potatoes, and I don't know how much I missed. So I'll tell you what I saw when I first came in.
Okay.
The first thing I saw was them walking up to the store on Black Friday.
Oh, okay.
And the baseball stud boyfriend, and and then the new guy, and we haven't went through their names and stuff like that, so on top of my mind. But basically, them walking up towards the front of the store, and the one kid like, hey, you want to go out with me? Blah 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 blah. And then the baseball boyfriend coming up and going, hey, fuck off, bud. That's the first thing I saw.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, what did I miss before that, and how much? Okay, because I was like, oh, I didn't miss anything, but maybe I did.
I mean, you didn't miss a terrible amount. You just kind of missed like the character setups. So the first, before that store scene, you get kind of a back and forth between two homes, and the one home is with the sheriff arrives. Yeah, Patrick Dempsey, the sheriff, he arrives to Mitch and Gina Gershon's house. Okay, for their Thanksgiving, and then you get the other side, which is Rick Hoffman, who's just that like great sleaze who plays Mr. Right in the film. Yeah. You get his like kind of family Thanksgiving with his daughter. Okay. And so you kind of get the back and forth of the two households, and like the rich house is obviously really big and everybody's having a good time. And then you have the other household where Mitch is like upset because he has to go in to work at Right Mart on Thanksgiving. So it's a little back and forth and just early character setup. It's not that important, but because it was dinner scenes, I was like, oh, are we going to start this off with a Santa sleigh situation?
Is James Caan going to show up? Right. Is the nanny going to be there? Yeah, no. Okay. Well, that makes sense. And that also does help to set up, a little bit of that, like, I guess, dissonance between people of different like socioeconomic classes, which is obviously the part of the theme in this movie. Anyway, so let's talk about the cast here real quick. You get like a cast of people who you're going to recognize a lot of faces, and frankly surprised that they got some of these in this movie. The number one of course being Patrick Dempsey. He's the guy from freaking Grey's Anatomy and stuff, right? And he plays, that kind of small town sheriff here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. You've got some other people who like, I kind of think I recognize their face, but I'm looking at what they're in, and I'm starting to think they're more like internet famous than acting famous.
Yeah, so
some of them on it.
So like Rick Hoffman, the guy who plays Mr. Right, like you'll recognize his face immediately because he is just always a slime. I don't think there's ever been a role where he's not a slime.
And he's in like Suits, right? That's the show a lot of people would know him from. Yeah, right?
He's in Suits. He's also in the original Hostel. So yeah, people would get that. Like he's in Billions, which is just another show about like, rich people being slime. You have another name, but like to your point of like people who are more internet famous, there's Addison Rae, who like, I recognize the name, but I didn't know what she looks like. I've just heard that name on the internet of like,
same.
It's like, that's a famous person. And like, that's a famous person for the young crowd that we're talking about. Like she's part of the 18 to 34 demographic. We're not anymore. So like, this is where we start getting misses. We start missing, I guess.
I know. I felt pretty old when I was like, I know I've heard the name Addison Rae. What is she in? And I looked and I was like, I don't know any of these things.
Yeah.
I think she's just from TikTok. Like that's kind of how I took it. But again, I'm 1,000. And then the other person. So there's so she plays Gabby. Her character is pretty inconsequential. There's Jessica, who is kind of the main protagonist, and she's played by Nell Verlaque. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I would go Verlaque.
Verlaque? Yeah. Again, did not know who she was. Had to look her up. She's in some things, but I get the like I said, she's definitely probably somebody who's 10 years younger than me. Would be a lot more familiar with, right? The one person that I was surprised to see that I did know who they are, and it's strictly because I have young children, is Milo Manheim. I know him. I have seen this fucking kid's face for so many hours because my kids are were not so much anymore, but a couple years ago were diehard fans of zombies. Okay. So this is a franchise of Disney musicals. Like it is I think it's only 3 movies. I've only seen 3 of them, but I've seen each of these 3 movies 100 fucking times. They are Disney, like straight to Disney Plus, like High School Musical style movies about zombies and humans. And like the first one is essentially it's a Romeo and Juliet thing between a zombie and a human, and he plays the zombie boy and she's the human girl, and the town's like separate, like there's like racial injustice vibes, but it's zombies and humans. It's real weird and heavy, and it's for little kids, right? Yeah. And then later on there's fucking werewolves and aliens, and it just gets wacky. But my kids like literally dressed up like them for Halloween, a couple of years ago. So I know I've seen this fucking kid 1,000 times. He's like one of the 2 stars of this franchise, which was weird because when I watched those movies 10,000 times with my kids, he was like much younger and really skinny and lanky and a child, and now he's like 6'5", like fucking enormous grown ass man. And like I almost had like it was like, wait, who the fuck is that? Oh my god, that's the fucking zombie
that's
kid.
The kid.
Like, it was which was kind of bizarre, but so he's definitely I think pretty well known to like I said, to a younger generation as well. Like we said, Patrick Dempsey plays the sheriff. Bizarre that he's in this movie, and he plays a huge role, which is kind of surprising. They get Gina Gershon for like a hot sec, which we'll talk about in a second. Tim Dillon, he plays the security guard. I know he's a comedian of note. Yeah. I've seen him before. Jenna Warren is another person that I only know who's just an internet person. And there's probably 3 or 4 more. And then this Jalen Thomas Brooks, who plays like one of the other kind of main characters on there. He's been in a handful of things in recent years, but like he was on Harvey Danger like a few years ago. Like there's like a handful of characters that are played by like former child stars, like Disney style child stars that are just like into their mid-20s now. So it's like they're not child stars anymore. They got it like it's almost like somebody involved with like Disney or something like that was involved with casting, because there's a few of those.
They're just out of Disney. Like we just aged out and we're trying to take serious roles now. And this is the progression. Like when you become an adult, you still have to go through horror movies as like a proving ground that you can act.
Yeah. I think you're right. So, I guess we're not going to go through plot point by plot point in this, but I think the opening scene is definitely worth discussing in a lot greater detail, because I don't know if I love it or hate it. I think I need to watch it again.
I like it as a setup. It's such a smart setup, but for some reason the scene itself doesn't play like perfectly.
I agree 100%. I was going to say, like, I really like the scenario and the way they set it up, and they really did a great job of creating tension early, but then I don't know that they stuck the landing on this scene. But you get this setup of it's Thanksgiving night, right? So the kind of lineup for Black Friday shopping, and you're at this big box, it's really meant to mimic Walmart, right? Even so much so as like the employees are wearing like the blue smocks and stuff like that. So you're outside. It's called Right Mart, and they've got this big Black Friday sale that's getting ready to kick off, and you have a bunch of people outside. And this was when I was wondering if I was kind of confused that I missed a little bit at the beginning of this or not, because they're like separated by these like barriers, and things are getting really heated really early with this crowd. And I wonder how much of this would land with, let's say an 18-year-old, 21-year-old audience right now, because when you and I were in high school, right, in the early 2000s, Black Friday shopping was a fucking humongous, and it still is. Of course, it still is, right? It's one of the biggest shopping days of the year. But the whole chaos of Black Friday and like people trampling each other and fist fighting and stabbing each other and all that shit, that was the peak, I feel like, in the early 2000s of that happening. I don't get the feeling that it's as intense as it was.
Not at all.
Now.
I mean, we're to the point in 2023 that I've heard ads just refer to it as Black November. And like, I think Walmart has gone to the model of doing weekly deals. So like there's these deals this Black Friday, there's these deals the next Friday. So it's like 4 Fridays of deals rather than having these insane fucking throwdowns. So like,
doorbuster craziness. Yeah.
So like, so this feels like it feels out of place, but it,
okay. That's how I thought too. That's how I felt too. And I wasn't sure that I was on the right track there, but I was like, I don't feel like I see these stories of like in the 90s and early 2000s, people were shanking each other at Walmart for a TV, right? And like now, and I even, when I was in high school, and I don't know if you did this as well, but I was in high school, me and my friends would go to like line up on Thanksgiving night, but then we didn't actually, like I would go, like we would line up at Best Buy and wait in line for 3 hours and like smoke a joint and just like take in the craziness of the whole thing, just because it was a crazy, chaotic thing to do. But then we'd get into Best Buy and we just like buy a couple DVDs. Like we weren't there to buy the $100 plasma screen TV or anything.
Oh,
like,
not at all.
We were just there to because it was wild and chaotic. And I remember like people fucking fighting over shit. Like when they got let into the store, it was chaotic.
Oh yeah, I was the same way. We would go. It was me and my friends, and we would go. We would get like just, the DVD, video game, or CD deals. And then like we would go have like a big brunch or something somewhere, and
we would go to Denny's afterwards.
Yeah. We'd go to Denny's or fucking Eaton Park and just like chill and look at our haul, of like cheap ass DVDs that we probably could have gotten cheaper if we waited a couple months, but it was just a fun thing to do. And like, I think sometimes we would go to a movie too, but other than that, it wasn't, we weren't there fighting. And I only have one story of like, I didn't even get in a fight or anything, but it's like, I went for a TV and I went to a Walmart at like 4 a.m. I went through, like, I planned it out too, to the point where like, I'm going through the garden section. I'm going in this way. Like I took a smaller entrance. I went all, and just like, I was in and out in 20 minutes. Of just like,
and you got stabbed with a pitchfork.
I only saw 3 stabbings and a fire, and that was it. But I was in and out, and that was all that mattered to me.
Yeah, it was like so this is a big setup of like something that was didn't feel particularly relevant to 2023. But anyway, it's pretty funny. It's pretty entertaining. This movie is like maybe the biggest value that it adds. I don't want to pretend like I didn't like it. I enjoy this movie, spoiler alert, but like one of the things that this movie really does is it really goes deep on the whole like mass hole aesthetic. Yeah. So it's Plymouth, Massachusetts, and everyone in the movie, except for the main characters, mysteriously, all have like insane mass hole accents. And the early part of the movie, they're all lining up, and apparently there's a protest happening, although I don't really see that much. Maybe I was missing it, but the plot synopsis I'm reading said there was a protest happening. Basically, just there's a bunch of people screaming and getting more and more agitated because they want let into the store. And then there's some dick who's like apparently from the rival high school, and he's really stirring the pot, and he's fucking hilarious. And he's just like, fuck you, fuck your mother, fuck your sister. He's just like saying
that guy rules.
He's a great character. He's fucking great. But he's just around getting them all fired up. And then you have like the main crew, right? The main protagonist crew, or the main protagonist, which I think we mentioned her name's Jessica. And then you've got Gabby And you've got, is it Lonnie's the asshole boyfriend? Is that Lonnie? Or no, am I getting mixed up? The friend's boyfriend. So like Gabby, who's Addison Rae, her boyfriend, the kind of one that's like the giantest of all the douchebags.
I thought that was Evan. Is that Evan?
Is that Evan? Okay, yeah, you're right. That's Evan. Sorry, the picture I'm looking at on the internet is him as like a kid when he was on the fucking Disney Channel or whatever.
Yeah, I think
so. Then there's Evan. Yeah,
I think isn't Lonnie the screaming kid?
Yeah, Lonnie's the fuck your mother. Yeah, all that stuff. And then you have Bobby, who's like who is Jessica's boyfriend at the time, and then and then you've got like Yulia, who's like the weird character who her dad is a Russian mobster for no reason.
I thought that was funny. It's just a funny gag. There's a lot of
it was funny.
There's a lot of little weird funny gags for no reason, but it makes the movie more interesting and more like stand out in that way. Like, so there's Yulia's dad who's just this Russian mobster, and he's like, "Come, we go to Florida." Like,
yeah, he's just driving this like fancy SUV, and like for some reason his house is being like renovated, and I don't like no, they don't really ever explain why that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's some sort of drug and tax purpose thing that he's just
you get the idea it's shady. Yeah,
because the cop asks him, he's like, "When is it going to be done?" He's like, "Never, don't worry." but then like there's another gag in this movie that like it has no consequence on anything, but it's so funny and stupid for no reason. Is they're in class and they're giving book reports on Thanksgiving, and there's this one just kind of mop-haired kid, Chad, who gives like this impassioned report, and he's like crying at the end, and he's sitting at a table with 3 other girls, and like as he's crying, he pulls his shirt up to reveal like an 8-pack and dab his tears with his shirt.
Yeah.
And he's just it's such a weird gag, but like it's just this obvious like nod to like super sensitive dudes who are also just shredded, and like they get all of the women now. He's
just like he's just playing the sensitive card super hard. And then what is the Russian girl's boyfriend's name? I'm missing this here.
That is Scuba.
That's Scuba. That's right. I knew he had a kind of a nickname there.
Because his last name is Diving, so they call him Scuba Diving.
Gabriel Davenport is played by who, like, he's like the big muscly jock guy of the group, right? And they're all like the football players, all this stuff. So this is kind of interesting, and this is going back to like the change in sensibilities here a little bit, not to get like too overly cerebral about this movie, but when you think about like the tried and true tenets of and tropes of a teen, specifically a teen slasher movie, typically speaking, and I'm talking about the really beloved ones, like Halloween and Friday the 13th, and then all the ones that were just spin-offs of all those, right? So the really established slasher tropes are, if you're a teenager, the reason you're going to get killed is because you're fucking, or you're drinking, or you're doing drugs, or maybe you're doing some sort of like minor crime or something like that, right? In this, and then the difference between that person and the final girl, or it could be the main protagonist, which is typically traditionally a final girl, is that person is kind of above all that and is like a little bit at odds with the friend group because they don't participate in the things that get you killed, whatever they may be, right?
Or they were just drawn into it, like they're
along for the ride's a better way of putting it. I was going to say wrong place, wrong time, but they're kind of just along for the ride. This is different in that this group, these essentially 3 couples, Jessica, her boyfriend, and the 2 other couples, they're all, they're not fucking, they're not even really doing drugs, although they do call out, that they do addies and stuff throughout, but they don't demonize it.
No.
The main thing that they're doing is being like spoiled rich kids, basically. Like they're entitled.
Yeah.
That is the main thing. That is the main. But Jessica is every bit, if not more so, than the rest of them.
Yeah.
So what makes Jessica, you can tell she's a little bit more sensitive to it and remorseful about what ultimately happens in the opening scene, which I know we got off on a little bit of a tangent. And so we'll get back to that, the Black Friday thing in a second. But what is the redeeming quality of any of these kids, including Jessica?
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily get it.
So like the redeeming quality comes for Jessica just like as an arc, because she eventually rreleases like the security tapes and everything, or
yeah,
tries,
a year later.
Like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like she's not good. So like she definitely should still be on the hook for what goes down at the Black Friday event. But at the same time, she doesn't really do anything at that event, but neither does Gabby or Yulia. It's only,
no, they really don't.
Yeah, it's only Evan who is taking video and also eventually uploads a video to YouTube.
Yeah.
That, you know, is like making fun of all the people who died. And then
that's a pretty funny little video.
Yeah.
It's like RIP survivors, smash that like, but it's like this really, you know, classic douchey YouTube video. Which did he upload that?
He uploaded it, but then also he mentions he took it down. So like it got uploaded and then somebody saved it and then starts re-uploading it a year later. So like he posted cringe, but somebody downloaded his cringe before he could get rid of it. So, but
well, the good thing Evan's doing and the gag that he's doing is he's taunting all the people waiting outside.
Yeah.
It's a funny bit. Like he's like holding up like an iPhone and he's like holding the things they desperately want to get in there and buy and like taunting them with him through the window because he gets let in the back door. Jessica, along with all her friends, get let in the back door because Jessica's dad owns the store.
Right. So like that's Jessica's big sin is the entitlement she has of being the daughter's owner. She gets everybody in the back door and then put all of her friends ahead of everybody else who had been waiting. So like that's her big sin in causing the riot. Because had she not let Evan in, Evan wouldn't have been doing the bits with the iPhones, enraging Lonnie, who's, you know, outside at the gate, inciting the riot as well.
Do you think Lonnie was a Halloween reference?
Maybe.
I kind of feel like why would you name a character Lonnie?
I don't know. Because it sounds funny in a masshole accent. Fucking Lonnie.
Fucking Lonnie.
God damn Lonnie.
But yeah, so then Lonnie, you know, what is, I mean, that's kind of what they're really riling up the audience outside or the crowd outside. But the inciting incident basically is that Lonnie grabs the bullhorn from the cop. I guess we should say right before that, Gina Gershwin's character comes in and like brings the cop
well, no, she brings the store. She brings the store manager. Yeah,
brings the store manager. Who? Let me get this clear because I wasn't taking notes, so I'm remembering here. The store manager is Gina Gershwin's character is married to whom?
Is married to Mitch. That's what you missed in the beginning. Yeah. Is because Patrick Dempsey comes to the house of Mitch, the store manager, and Gina Gershon for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So like you missed that setup that Mitch and Gina Gershon are married. And then Mitch has to go into work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because he was, of course, desperately. And I was wondering when I was thinking after, did I misremember? Because whenever, spoiler alert, we're spoiling the whole movie.
Yeah.
But after she is killed, Mitch is the one mourning her.
Mm-hmm.
But then it comes back around in the climax and in the ending and the explanation of the movie. But that there was more going on than meets the eye.
Right.
So anyway, the inciting incident is Lonnie basically taking the Patrick Dempsey. What's his fucking name? I can't remember. I keep calling him Patrick Dempsey.
Sheriff.
Just call him the sheriff. Yeah, taking the sheriff's bullhorn and saying, "Okay, the doors are open," and then everyone from the back starts pushing. They break through the barrier. The security guard just kind of runs away, which was interesting because one of the reasons why I don't know if they actually stuck the landing on this is because at times it doesn't feel like there's that many people there.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a manageable amount of people.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. The same thing happens later when there's the whole parade scene when you're like, I don't feel like there's that many people here. You know, it feels a little empty, which took me out of it a little bit. But he gets everyone fired up. They all start pressing against the glass. People were getting crushed against the glass. Ultimately, you know, one of the other security guards is trying to unlock the door so people don't get crushed against the glass. The glass breaks away, mashes him, and all hell breaks loose in a what is a very comically charged scene. Mm-hmm. Like the glass breaks, a guy, even though it's like safety glass, a guy gets his throat cut on the glass as he's entering the store.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like it's very cartoonish,
and he just keeps going. Like
he just keeps shopping. And I guess the other really big joke here is that like the big item that they're all really desperately trying to get and fight over are like Belgian waffle.
Right. It's such a non-thing. Like it's not a new invention. It's not a particularly useful one. It's a one-use Belgian waffle maker, and everybody's killing each other for it.
Yeah. So they get in there, and immediately people start getting fucked up. Fast forward a little bit. What ends up happening is Mitch's wife, which I still didn't write down her name. She ends up, it's this scene where they do some cool practical effects here, but the ultimate like shortcoming here is there's so much going on and they're really trying to focus in on all this chaos that's happening. But in all the chaos and the violence of this like mad rush into the store, you have that kind of thing where everyone feels like they're made of Play-Doh a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like relatively minor physical altercations end up in like massive physical wounds. Right. You know, the guy slashing his throat, you know, by walking through and like glass touches his neck and his throat gashes open. Or like I said, Gina Gershon, like she falls down in the chaos and then like somebody with a cart like hits her head and it just like fucking brains her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And it like rips off part of her scalp as it, you know, trolleys away.
Well, yeah, then her hair gets caught in the wheel and like pulls off part of her scalp. And then like somebody like steps on, his name's Bobby, who's Jessica's, you know, he's like the ace pitcher on the baseball team, steps on his arm and his like compound fracture, like elbow explodes.
Yeah.
You know?
So his arm just crumples like a can.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on here and you're just like, you know, so it's all this fucking chaos and stuff. And then, you know, it's essentially fast forward a year. Somebody has uploaded this all to the internet, but, Jessica's dad, who owns the store, has basically destroyed all the security footage. So a lot of this got brushed under the rug, and he spent a year trying to basically clean up his image and do a lot of positive things in the town to try to get people to forget about it. But the plan is he's just going to do it again the next year. He's going to have another big, you know, blowout doorbuster sale. Literally 1 year after all these people were killed. And there's like a fake, you know, there's like a little news bulletin and it's like 1 year after blah, 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 the tragedy that happened at the fucking Right Mart or whatever it's called. And they're like, star baseball pitcher, you know, he got hurt. And meanwhile, like a bunch of people died and they're like talking about how he never pitched again.
Yeah. And they're like, no arrests were made. And, you know, nobody was held accountable, essentially.
Yeah. So it's a year later, and that's when things get kicked off. You've got the sheriff. There are like 40 red herrings in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is red herring the movie.
Right.
There's characters that are just created just to be red herrings.
Yeah, which is why I really like the opening, because it gave basically the entire town motive if they wanted it. Mm-hmm. But you also have like specific motive with like Mitch losing his wife, Bobby losing his arm, things like that. So like you have specific motive, but you have overarching motive. So like that's why I like the idea of the opening scene, but it's a good setup.
Yeah. And then you have like a new deputy coming to town, and I'm like, oh, we're going to see things through the eyes of this new deputy. Mm-hmm. But then you're like, no, he was literally just brought in because he's kind of big and scary, and you think he might be the killer.
Right. Yeah, he fits the bill.
Like he plays almost no. Actually, and interesting enough, he doesn't even physically fit the bill, because you see the killer, pretty close up and intimately, and you see that like he's not that big and he's kind of short, like, and that guy's giant. So you're like, it ain't him. But anyway, Thanksgiving in Plymouth is a big deal. And for some reason, they all decided that they're going to have these masks, these pilgrim masks. And it's John Carver, who was like what was he? He was the
town. He was some town founder or whatever.
Yeah, he was an important guy in the original Plymouth colony, and they have these masks of him, and everyone's wearing them around. So it's a little bit of a V for Vendetta looking kind of situation, but imagine a pilgrim with a mustache, kind of a goatee and some like long hair, and people are wearing pilgrim hats with it and all this stuff. And it's just like a town pride Thanksgiving-y type of thing. Of course, the killer wears one, and otherwise, they keep saying like he's dressed like a pilgrim. He's actually not. He's wearing a Michael Myers costume, but instead of the Michael Myers mask, he's wearing a pilgrim mask and a hat, and a pilgrim hat. Yeah, that's what he's wearing. Yeah, there's nothing else pilgrim about it. He's wearing like a mechanic's like jumpsuit. Yeah,
he's dressed like a pilgrim for like a play that needs a quick change.
Yeah. But so now you're a year in, and you're getting reintroduced to a lot of the characters, and you start to see that some of the people who were like guilty of all the craziness that happened at the Right Mart, at the whole tragedy that happened on Black Friday, are still around town. One of them being, the ornery local masshole waitress at the diner that they're all hanging out at. So. We'll jump around here to some scenes perhaps that we liked. What was anyone's come to mind that you liked or disliked for any reason? I'm not going to necessarily drain the plot here, because it's pretty formulaic overall, I would say.
It is pretty formulaic, and just like, I guess I like the first 2/3 of this movie a lot more than I did the last third. Yeah, because the last third is doing so much of trying to get in all of the high points of the Thanksgiving trailer. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah. But like Eli Roth doesn't really deliver any surprises is kind of what the bummer was for me. Like I'm okay if he wants to recreate all the stuff from the Thanksgiving trailer and, maybe put a different spin on it. But like, I've already seen that, like, in a more extreme version. So like, give me one
in the trailer.
Yeah. So like, give me one last surprise. Give me something that'll shock me at the end. Yeah. But yeah. All the stuff at the beginning I like, because like I was genuine. Like, I think the scene in the diner is maybe my favorite at this moment, because it has a really good, effective jump scare that's done properly, because it's a jump scare that leads to danger. Like, it's followed up with the death of the diner waitress. So, and then it's fun.
Yeah, and there are some creative kills in this, I would say, as well. Like, I mean, ultimately, not even what kills her, but when she's the diner waitress, they stick her head in the sink, she's all wet, and then he opens up the freezer, presses her face against the freezer wall, the deep freezer, and then like pulls a bunch of her skin off, and then she's trying to call the cops, but her like facial recognition on her phone won't work because her face is all fucked up, and it's just it's just kind of cheeky like clever stuff there, and it's fun. And then ultimately she gets I would say there's some heavy-handed CGI at moments,
sometimes,
but they do have some good practical effects as well. I will say one thing that Eli Roth really likes to do is go heavy on the intestines. There are like 5 intestine spilling shots in this movie. Like the brat and kielbasa budget on this movie was through the roof. He really likes that type of shot, like they just guts falling out and intestines.
They must have gotten some sort of sponsorship from a butcher or something and just gave him a whole bunch of pig.
Johnsonville's is above the title sponsor for that.
Here's a bunch of pig casings for you. Have fun.
But like I said, I think it lands, and that whole scene where she's killed, and then ultimately like the bottom part of her torso is like impaled on the on the sign for the store. So this kind of alarms the whole town. It does feel like overall the characters are operating a little bit independently, because you never really get the sense that there's that much actual like panic that's happening in the town, despite the fact that there's tons of murders happening in very public ways all over town. But it does feel like it's really only affecting a small group of people. It
doesn't have the same kind of like Jaws, where like Jaws is the entire town affected, and like you get scenes of people like running out of the water and everything. You don't get the same feeling with this. It just feels like, oh, you have the kids who are getting Instagram tagged, and that bothers them, but everybody else seems to be kind of dragging their feet. Although it does make sense with the ending of how ineffective like the police force is. So you're right. I mean, so I guess a couple of things. Most of this movie is a little bit of a whodunit, like even some giallo elements. I'll say one thing about the killer I'll say is you see him a lot, and I don't get the feeling that I never get the feeling that he's terrifically intimidating, except for when you get him in his element at his little, at his crib where he's keeping all the bodies and all this stuff. It's probably worth saying because it's a huge plot point. Not that we're going through all the big plot points, one by one, but ultimately, it's a revenge thing, as you might have probably already guessed, and he is setting up a quote unquote Thanksgiving dinner table with all of these victims that were present or somehow responsible for the tragedy that happened at the store on Black Friday. So he keeps sending, Instagram posts and stuff to all of, the people, the survivors, specifically like the teen friend group, where there's like a place setting and there's people's names associated, on each of the place settings. And then as he kills people, he has either their body or a body part or something like that, basically representing their, at their place setting. So he's kind of collecting victims in this sense. So it's never like a who's going to get killed next. You kind of know, because a lot of times they like set up who's going to get killed next. And you can just kind of tell by plot armor what makes sense. Like, of course, they're going to kill the diner waitress and Tim Dillon because they don't matter to the rest of the group dynamics. And then they get...
You can lose them easily.
Right. And then you get Lonnie and his girlfriend killed because, again, they don't matter to the plot dynamics, but they have a big hand in what happened at the event. So it feels a little predictable and plot armory that way.
Lonnie and his girlfriend, that's probably one worth talking about because it is a obviously a pretty famous shot, but from the original trailer from 2007 that inspired the movie. But I also think this is an example of where things got a little you know, a little neutered maybe. Where, you know, you go in there and he's in there and he's in the weight room and it looks like he's, I don't know, he's motivating people in the weight room in some capacity. I don't know if he's graduated from high school and now he's like a coach or I don't know, but he's just like going around just saying masshole shit and kind of like, I don't know, just being over the top in the weight room. And then his girlfriend, who he's sneaking around with, maybe because she's still a student, I don't know, you don't get much backstory here, but she is a cheerleader and she's like, you know, hey, come on, like, let's go, you know, fuck in the locker room or something. And she's like luring him back into the back room, and she has a trampoline set up with a like spotlight over it. And apparently she's going to do like a trampoline striptease, which is pretty much exactly what happens in the trailer, in the 2007 trailer.
Yeah.
So without that context, this might seem really stupid and out of place, but if you've seen that trailer, this is a pretty memorable part of that trailer. So ultimately, it's a little dramatized in the sense that, like, in the movie, the boyfriend who's watching the trampoline striptease by the cheerleader just gets kind of pulled down. In this instance, his head gets just twisted around. So the killer has superhuman strength, apparently, which is doesn't make any sense in the long term.
But again,
once you find out who the killer is, but
again, we've already seen early on, everybody else is made of Play-Doh. Like, yeah. So it still tracks within the world because your arm can be crumpled like a can by somebody stepping on it. So that also means your head can be turned all the way around.
Yeah, everyone's made of Play-Doh.
Yeah.
So he literally spins a person's head the way around. So like, what the fuck does it mean? But anyway, and then the quote unquote gag from the trailer is that as she's jumping on the trampoline and bouncing and jumping and doing splits and all this stuff, she's stripping. She's taking her clothes off. You see, you know, boobs and butts and all that stuff. And then someone puts a knife up through the trampoline, and ultimately she does a poorly timed split where she's meant to land on her like bare ass on the trampoline, and she is, you know, essentially stabbed in the crotch with the knife that is poking up out of the trampoline. So this is like a really classic, you can not classic in the sense that it's like a trope or anything, but you can just tell this was Eli Roth going like, what kind of grimy grindhouse shit can I suggest that would feel so absurd in a Thanksgiving movie? That was the gag. Yeah. That was the gag in 2007. But now they have to bring it to life in the movie, and they pull their punch.
Yeah. It was so
probably okay, but it was just like, come on, guys, you're going to do it. Just fucking do it.
It was so disappointing to me because one, you have the grand setup of the trampoline. Because it's like it's supposed to pop you the way it's filmed. She leads Lonnie into a dark room, and there's like, you see nothing in the darkness except for like a chair for Lonnie to sit on. She walks off into the darkness and hits the spotlights, and it's like supposed to be like the Undertaker showing up, but it's not the Undertaker. It's the trampoline. You go, oh, it's the trampoline. Right. Fuck yes.
Oh my God.
What is it?
Trampoline! Trampoline!
He said, what now?
Oh my God, that must be Kane. Yeah.
Oh God, it's the trampoline. She's gonna get stabbed in the vagina.
God.
Yeah. So it's filmed to pop you, and then even in her little striptease routine, like she hits the split on the trampoline as like a setup, as like, oh, she's doing this move. And it's going to be part of her routine for Lonnie. So she's going to hit the split clothed to tease him, and then she'll hit the split again and she'll get stabbed. But that it doesn't, like you said, he pulls his punch, and I'm half wondering, like I have to assume he filmed it anyway. Yeah. And like took it out later.
I think so. I got to assume that. I mean, this is a lot of speculation, but if I gotta guess, I would say that this was something that they were like, because really, you have to think about it like in a cynical, like overly pragmatic way. What percentage of the audience is going to watch this and expect that because they know and remember the 2007 trailer versus people who are just going in because this is a Thanksgiving silly slasher movie and are going to be turned off by a woman getting stabbed in the crotch versus people who are, so, it's cynical to think that, but that's probably what happened given the scope of this project, that they had to do that math in their head, I
mean, maybe they didn't even do the math. They just did like test screenings. In every test screening,
and they were like, "No, dog."
Yeah, every test screening that had the vagina stab, they're like, "Nah, pass, no thanks."
Yeah. It's just it's not that I need that in the movie, but it just it all now this is a movie that I can kind of like. I know what I'm getting. I this is not, you mentioned Terrifier earlier. There were moments where it felt like it was kind of touching that vibe, but then you quickly realize that this is it's not going to go anywhere unexpected.
Yeah. And I guess that's the other thing is because of those early scenes with like the prop legs with the intestines perched on top of the sign is such a crazy daylight long hold on that. And you're like, oh wow, this movie might go some fucking dark ass places.
Well, that's the thing. It kind of did at times.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why do you do that, but not that?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it has some specific association with like the sensibilities of an audience that ain't me. You know what I mean? And so I guess that's why I was sticking on that. But it does feel like there are times where, in terms of gore, it's pushing the envelope of what is acceptable for a general audience. And it's like I said, it's not Damien Leone, but it's also like pretty brutal compared to most stuff you see. So it's like they gave him that, and you can almost imagine the meeting where it's like, okay, listen, we can do the super violence, but anything that feels sexual we got to take out because that didn't test well. Right. So like it just feels a little bit by committee in that sense. And that's honestly probably my biggest disappointment with the movie. Not because I'm like, I want to see ladies getting stabbed in the crotch. Like that's not necessarily what. Well, that's not necessarily what I'm. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's not what you're there for. Like, that's not
what I'm there for. But I want to see something that it feels like the unedited. Like it's what the director wanted.
Right.
I just want it to be the vision of the director, not to sound like I was trying to think of a better way to say it, to not sound like I'm being like a snooty douche about it. But like, I just want the director to have the bandwidth to make the movie they want. And that's probably why I love Terrifier so much. So I'm like, Damien Leone's a psycho. And so you're like, oh, they let this psychopath make this fucking movie and he did it really well. That's wild. You know what I mean? Like, and he's just like, he's so good at what he does. And he's also like just going for broke, and they're going to let him do it. This was like, if given the option, Eli Roth would have done some more stuff, but he just, he's on a leash a little bit.
So comparatively, like the trampoline gag gets pulled back. The other gag that's really huge from the trailer is that it ends with the Thanksgiving dinner scene, and there's a woman who's been cooked into a turkey, and you see that her vagina is stuffed with stuffing, and her head has been sewn on to an actual turkey, and then the pilgrim winds up fucking that turkey as well. That is so far beyond what they could do in this movie, and I was okay if they didn't do it. Like it's funny. It's funny as a completely dubious gag, but there's no way you can write that as a normal movie and get to those plot points. So I was okay if they didn't do that.
That's why like that would have been a big ask. There was a couple things that I felt like were a little bit, a little PG-13 the way they did it, but that was the over the top money shot for the this is Grindhouse in the X dimension,
right?
Like we're taking this shit to the bajillionth degree, right? That was the shock and awe part of the trailer, and it was just like, oh Jesus Christ kind of part. So they weren't going to do that, but I did like that they brought the bit back around, and ultimately the stepmom of Jessica / wife of the
Thomas,
the store owner. Yeah. So she gets it. She never really, like, she's obviously like greedy, and she's the one who wants to keep the store open. But like, I don't know if she did anything to deserve the most mean-spirited kill in the movie. But
she is the one who deleted the original store footage.
Oh, did she? I mean, that went past me.
Yeah, she deleted the store footage, but Thomas kept a backup on his home computer.
That's the one Jessica goes and gets.
Right.
Okay, for whatever reason, I missed that she was the one who deleted it. So anyway, that makes a little bit more sense. But she gets definitely the meanest spirited one, where she gets cooked in an oven, and we kind of watch her getting cooked in an oven in a pretty extended scene. But then when they bring her to the table and you get the big reveal, she's like wearing clothes, and like there is this pretty great setup where she wakes up after she's been kind of like abducted, and he's like basting her, like getting her ready to put in the oven, like cracking pepper on her and like seasoning her and her whole body. And it's just like, whoa, they're going to do it. They're going to fucking do it, and they do. But, like I said, it's very, compared to what you see in the 2007 trailer, it is a very soft take on
it. Which I was fine with, because again, you can't just have like the imagery in the trailer lasts, probably less than 10 seconds, if that, because they just want to show you that quick, shocking stuff and make you go, what the fuck did I just see? But you can't have an actual, this scene probably goes on maybe 5 minutes, if not more. You can't have that extended. So the conceit with,
no, you can't.
Yeah. So the conceit is, she'll still be wearing her clothes. And we're not going to stuff her vagina full of stuffing. That's crazy,
Yeah, that's crazy, guys.
So we're not going to do that.
Please don't. That's crazy. But I did like, I guess, something that felt, not that I wouldn't have been over the top. I'm sure I would have been over the top, because they do a couple of other like specific homages to it, where like the guy's puking, you know what I mean? When he sees it, which that happens in the trailer and stuff like that, which I thought was fun. But the one thing that I was like, why are we not doing, like, I'm not sure how to verbalize it, but here's what I mean. They have the asshole owner of the store who's ultimately responsible for the whole thing, and he carves off a hunk of her roasted thigh, which is pretty gruesome, right?
Right.
And he puts it in front of him and is like, basically, I'm going to make you eat your wife. You know what I mean? Which is, like I said, that's a pretty gruesome thing. But they just let it drop there.
Right.
So it's just like the idea of it happening is as far as they're willing to go.
Right.
Not that I needed to see him eating it or something like that, but like I said, it's another example of they were only allowed to go so far.
Right.
On stuff.
Yeah. So it's like saying, hey, we'll give you the turkey gag, but she can't be naked and full of stuffing. We'll give you this feeding scene, but it can't ever actually go in his mouth. So it's just, it feels like the restrictor plate's on. So it's not like I want this to happen. It's not like I'm like, oh God, I really wanted to see him eat it. You know what I mean? Like, not that would have even enhanced my experience of the movie. I'm just saying it just feels like we're watching a movie with the restrictor plate on a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It's not, you're not craving it. You didn't go into the movie being like, oh, I can't wait to see some weird cannibalism and sexual violence. And you didn't go in for that, but it's just on your mind because, again, it's Eli Roth. I think that's the thing, is it's on everybody's mind, is it's Eli Roth. It's in your back of your mind that he's infamous for Hostel and Cabin Fever, which, like, those movies didn't have restrictor plates. They're fucking crazy. They're like, they've aged poorly, but also they're fucking crazy. So
ultimately the scene that I do think they really did do justice, although it might have been a little, I don't see overdone, but like, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you think about it, is the parade scene.
I like the parade scene.
I liked it too. There was a couple things that I was like about. So first of all, like one thing I like about this, and it pertains to the parade scene more than maybe almost any other scene, is this movie's a great example of what, Joe Bob Briggs on The Last Drive-In likes to refer to as not allowing too much plot to get in the way of a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're just like, despite all these murders, we're still going to have the parade because reasons.
Yes.
And then we're all along for the ride with you. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. The beaches have not been closed is what it is. The beaches have not been closed.
Exactly. We're still here. We're still going to do it. And reasons. Okay, fine. I'm on board with you. So they do and tons of people still come, and tons of people still dress up as pilgrims, despite all the things that are happening in the town.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I really liked was they kept setting up the kid who was going to be in the turkey costume, and they used essentially the same turkey costume, right? Yeah. As they do in the trailer. And they kept setting him up, and they even had him like showing him getting dressed. The turkey's going to get it, right? Because you saw it in the movie. You saw it in the trailer. It's happening. So you're really anticipating it, but you don't know how or when until we're just watching a parade. You're seeing everybody. You're getting a lot of like misdirects. Oh, there's a guy with a mask. Oh, there's another guy with a mask. Oh, there's a scream in the background. Was it a scream of terror or was it a scream of fun? We don't know. So it's just high tension. And then all of a sudden, you just see an evil clown. and you see a giant Halloween costume, something you could absolutely buy at Spirit Halloween. Big mask, full body Halloween costume, or a clown costume, and you think, well, that's a weird misdirect. Why would there be a clown there?
Yeah.
And then the clown pulls out an axe and hacks off the turkey's head, and blood shoots everywhere. You're like, oh my god, it was the clown!
Right? It's so insane.
It's just so wild.
And again, this is this is the Joe Bob Briggs thing, because the turkey had nothing to do with the events of Black Friday. He just for whatever reason, the clown has decided to hack his head off because
in front of everybody, in front of the entire town. Yeah.
And because it causes the chaos he needs, because eventually the scene ends with him abducting more people for the table. But it just gave him that opening. And then just all hell fucking breaks loose. And again, you get a whole bunch of more people made of Play-Doh. And my favoriteest thing, because it reminded me of a trauma movie when it happened, is you have this parade float and it's on a giant flatbed truck and it's the Mayflower. And so there's this old man driving this parade truck and he has his two granddaughters in the truck with him, and he hits the brakes and the mast, I guess, is it the mast? What is that called on the front of the ship? That's
the bow or the mast.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, the mast goes straight up in the middle. I think it's the bow, maybe.
It's the bow, but whatever that log on the front.
Thing that sticks out straight. It's the thing in Caddyshack where he tries to break the champagne bottle on, but it knocks it off.
But whatever it is, it's the log on the front, and he fucking reverse Final Destinations himself, and the log comes through the back of the cab and blasts through his face, and then it's just blood squirting on these two young girls, and it reminded me of trauma because Lloyd used to put his daughters when they were young in the films and squirt blood on them and shit. So,
well, and the funniest thing about it is they hold on the scene one more beat, and the blood coming out stops looking like blood squirting out of an open artery and more just someone throwing Dixie cups of blood on children.
Right, yeah.
It's just like blah, blah, blah.
And they're just, the whole time, they're just screaming, "Grandpa, Grandpa."
It's so chaotic. And that's what I mean is parts of this movie are so unnecessarily mean-spirited.
Yeah.
And then other ones just feel like you have a censor bar on the screen, But yeah, this was by far the most chaotic and fun scene. And it makes no sense at all, especially once you learn who the killer is. Why would he use this opportunity to abduct those people in the middle of town and throw a bunch of smoke bombs? I think they were really trying to set up that there were multiple people responsible. That's how I took it.
Yeah, that's what I felt too. Like I felt that there was probably more than one killer, and that's what the reveal was going to be.
Yeah, but you don't, right? And I guess we should spiral towards the end here. There's certainly other fun scenes that are worth talking about, but ultimately, in the climactic scene, which we had already jumped forward a little bit, where John Carver, who has like a website and like an Instagram account that's the John Carver, which is funny to me. But he's live streaming this whole thing, which the whole thing you think it's a young person because they're like all tech savvy and have all this stuff going. Spoiler, it's not. We learn after Jessica escapes from the whole dinner scenario, she runs through the woods and gets like all these little barbs and stuff on like her pants and her shoes. And then she, after everything happens, her baseball boyfriend comes in. He's got one of the masks on. He was also in the parade. So you kind of get the idea he's another red herring in this instance, but they think they kind of catch him in the act. The cop goes in, shoots him apparently, and then comes out and it's like, oh, the killer got killed off screen. Of course that wasn't the killer,
right? But
you don't know who the killer is. And if you pay attention, I felt like it was pretty fucking obvious you knew who the killer was. And I'm even the type of person who likes to purposefully go along for the ride with the audience and not try to be the like, oh, I'm the fucking horror nerd who knows who the killer is because I know what to look for. Like, I usually don't do that. Like, I'm the one who's trying to let myself be surprised. And even that, I was in this instance, I'm like, I know, how is this not the fucking killer, right? And you realize because you see he's got barbs on his shoes too. It is it's the sheriff, right? And like I just felt like at one point I second guessed it because I was like, now it's too obvious, but it wasn't too obvious. It was in fact the sheriff. So then you get this big climactic scene with Baseball Billy or whatever the fuck his name is. He's not dead. He and Jessica have this big final showdown with Baseball Billy, or I'm sorry, with the sheriff, and he's like lost it. He's screaming wild shit in like a masshole accent at them, carrying an axe, and eventually they blow him up with fire because that's what you do.
Or do they?
So they have like a big parade balloon type of thing that they fill with gas, and then she ultimately shoots like the blunderbuss like musket thing, which is like she had to have mentioned 10 times in the movie that she did that. So
Chekhov's blunderbuss was so funny to me because they just introduce it so many times, and they introduce her talking about how, she knows how to fire one so many times. And it's like, okay, I guess that'll come into
it. You're going to shoot him. You're going to shoot him with the blunderbuss. Like it was really, really spelled out for you. But ultimately she shoots the big turkey balloon full of gas, blows him up. And you even get the like, nothing could have survived that explosion, boss. Like when they're investigating it at the end.
And then some really pregnant shots of firemen walking around in full mask gear, and you can't see their faces in the masks. And it's like, is he getting away as a fireman?
Did he Ocean's 11 himself out of there? But ultimately, you learn that the sheriff was in love with Gina Gershon, and she was pregnant with his child.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, like I said, me missing the first, few minutes of the movie, like made it a little bit more like I was like, wait, what kind of thing? But like I just assumed they were having an affair or whatever. But now knowing that he was there, and anyway, it makes a little bit more sense knowing that in retrospect. But she was the store and everyone involved in the Black Friday incident, took everything away from him, and he went crazy, and he decided to take back his very, very themed revenge on them all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's left, like you said, it's left with a cliffhanger. You even get a Nightmare on Elm Street style dream sequence jump scare of him jumping out of the closet on fire and grabbing her when she's laying in bed with zombie guy. And then and then I'm trying to think what the very last thing that cuts out after that is.
What is the very last thing? Because I was thinking, you said Nightmare on Elm Street, but I was also thinking of Event Horizon. Because Event Horizon kind of ends the same way.
Oh, right.
Where you get the one last jump scare of Sam Neill, and then Starks wakes up in the tube.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the end. I don't think really anything else anything of note happens after that. It's just like, well, maybe next Thanksgiving he'll come back, and that's the end. And then we get treated to an unexpected bit of Mr. Glenn Danzig at the end. we get the Misfits. We get when he go, or Where Eagles Dare, which is the I ain't no goddamn son of a bitch. I like to refer to that song as Where Eagles Dare, in parentheses, I ain't no goddamn son of a bitch. Because that's what people know the line. So I was just like, so fitting that we get some Glenn Danzig at the end
for no reason.
movie.
I don't know how much of the credits you watched, but like Danzig even gets like a special thanks at the end. Like
I didn't. I stuck around through all the little like stylized stills at the end. But once the credits started rolling, I bailed.
Yeah.
But I will say,
there's a special thanks for Glenn. There's special thanks for Tarantino and Rodriguez, and then like after that, there's a just like a little outtake that has the Rick Hoffman in it.
Oh, I missed that.
That's all. That's all you missed. But I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, Glenn Danzig actually gets a credit as a special thanks because he gives them.
There you go.
He gives them Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, Where Eagles Dare. That's a shirt.
I've been trying to figure it out. But I don't know what the graphic is.
Well, yeah. It's like maybe it's the Eagle's Nest.
Maybe
it's like Where Eagles Dare, and it's anyway. One character we didn't talk about, which is worth talking about real quick, and I don't have his name here. Let me see if I can figure out what his name is real quick. Maybe is the like sleazy older guy who's selling tickets to his party.
Oh,
and he's like selling booze to kids and guns, and his dad owns the gun shop and all that shit.
Yeah, his character's name is McCarty.
Yeah,
and he's having he's having the McCarty party.
Yeah. It's such a pointless character, but just funny anytime he's on screen. And I forgot to look up before we started who that was. And his name is Joe Delphine.
Yeah.
It feels weird that he's not relevant in some instance, because why is his character there?
So
who is he?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be another red herring. Because
he definitely is, yeah.
Because he has like access to guns. He has all kinds of crazy weaponry, as you see, like later on, and then. But there's no clear connection between him and Black Friday, I don't think. So,
no.
He's a weird character. He also has like strange, flirtatious interactions with Jessica at times. Because like
they have a history together. You almost expected them to have a history together.
Yeah. So it's, or just like maybe he was supposed to be like set up as like a jealous, like somebody who's jealous of her relationships with. Was it Ryan and Bobby? So you have all these weird kind of red herrings that like they never pay off in a meaningful way because they were red herrings, but also like sometimes the movie just forgets about characters. Like the movie, because Ryan isn't the killer in the end, he just disappears. Like you think the reason why he disappears is because he's the killer, but no, he just disappeared.
He just disappeared, but then he is in the last scene with her, laying in bed with her when she has the jump scare. But there are tons of characters, like the Instagram famous person that we know about, like just kind of fades into the distance. Like there's a lot of characters that just fade into the background and we never really see or hear from them again. And they're like, nothing ever really wraps up with them. But
you get when they're at the fire investigation, you get like almost this, I guess you would call it a hero shot maybe, but it's a wide shot that includes all the survivors, and like Gabby, Scuba is there. And then even McCarty's there. Like even he's included in the group.
Yeah, you're right. No, I was going to say like the McCarty character. I just remember when you said that, the whole scene where he like gives Jessica his dad's ring from Iraq as like good luck. And it's like, where was this earned like earlier? I don't like, you felt like maybe something got left on the cutting room floor on that or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's possible because like this movie is almost 2 hours. So like there's a good chance there's a lot of backstory with this McCarty character that just got left out because it's like that we don't need this.
Yeah. I'm not seeing him in anything. Like he was in a movie called Polar. He played Squash Man. Sounds like not a very big part in a movie from 2019, and I haven't seen him in anything since. But he was great. Actually, he was really funny. Like I actually really like that character a lot. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I will say one other kill that there are a few cool creative kills that are Thanksgiving themed. I mean, one was like guy gets stabbed with like an electric carving knife. I was like, I'll take it or leave it. The one I liked is the Russian girl, the girl whose dad's a Russian mobster for some reason, gets stabbed in both of her ears with the corn holders, which is like, God, that's pretty good. Right. Although I would argue corn on the cob, not really a Thanksgiving thing. Like corn, maybe. Corn on the cob, maybe not. But he does take the corn, the little pokers that you stick in the ends, in the summertime, we're eating corn on the cob on either side, and stabs her in both of her ears with them. So that was pretty good.
I mean, I don't know. I think corn is definitely one of those Thanksgiving meal things. It's also just because it's been so co-opted by Memorial Day and July 4th. That you don't think of it as Thanksgiving that much anymore.
Yeah, I suppose
we're a corn country. Our country runs on corn. Everything is full of corn and starch and syrup.
But that's Flint corn, guys. That's the stuff you put. That's sweet corn. That's way out of season. Anyway, I'm nitpicking here. This was a fun movie. It's not a groundbreaking anything. Like I said, it's a slightly mean-spirited, decidedly silly, fairly formulaic holiday slasher movie. Yeah. Like that is just that. It is fine. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with it. Am I going to run out and tell everybody they need to watch it? Or am I going to go run out and buy, the Blu-ray copy of it? Probably not. But, I might watch it again in the future. Well, it might be worth a watch again, but that's about the long and short of it for me.
Yeah. I think if he would have made this movie instead of making The Green Inferno, it would probably be like a lot more extreme, less mature. Yeah. But I think we would probably like it a little bit more. Just because
it might have lasted the test of time. Like this is a movie I can see its only chance of really sticking around and being like a movie that people go back to and think of as like one of the movies we remember from this era is because of its associated with the holiday and not a lot of competition out there, which is ultimately, I'm sure, why it got made.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's fine. It's like, again, it's not a bad movie or anything like that. It's just, it's probably better for a younger audience. Because we have too much association with like the original trailer and how this doesn't pay that off. If this movie gets a sequel though, that could be really good.
Yeah, I could see that. And they do kind of leave the door open at the end for that to be the case.
Yeah, because a sequel, you're starting with a blank slate. We're no longer associating anything with the 2007 trailer. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
See what happens there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd watch it. Listen, I'd watch it.
For sure.
All right, boys and ghouls. That is Eli Roth's Halloween Thanksgiving from 2023. Go check it out. It's a fun little watch. One more reminder. If you've got suggestions for us, especially if you're one of our patrons on Patreon, if you got suggestions for us, or if this is an opportunity for you to, nudge you across the line there to go out and join us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Halloween is Forever and give us suggestions for holiday horror movies in general, but also specifically for our Secret Satan Showdown episode in December, because it be coming, you guys. Anything else I'm forgetting, Steve?
Well, let's see. One, we already got a suggestion from our listener Dan, who's in the Discord right now. He said,
"Ooh, what Dan say?"
Dan has suggested that Black Christmas 1974, but he said anybody can do it except for Brian.
You rat fuck.
And then my other
listen, I give you guys one Halloween puppy adventure and you're all butthurt about it.
Everybody's on my side. I'm the cool one.
Yeah, I give you guys one Halloween puppy adventure and now Steve's the victim.
Yes.
Come
on. My other thing is, maybe if Eli Roth listens to this, maybe he has plans, but if not, he's got to do it, because now we talked about how we used to go out and buy DVDs on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
What he needs to do is next year release the unrated cut on DVD Black Friday. Put out physical media. Everybody loves physical media again. Yeah. Get that shit out there. Get the unrated cut with the vagina stabbing and whatever else was left on the cutting room floor. Get it all out there.
Yeah.
We needs it.
Yeah. Do a doorbuster deal. First 10 people through the door get it for free, but you got to stab somebody for it. Like, really go criminal with the whole promotion. I like it. Let's get back to those days where we used to throw each other under truck tires and gouge each other's eyes out for 35-inch plasma screens.
Let us
miss those days,
give us the doorbuster deals at the Amazon warehouse. Let us run roughshod in the Amazon warehouse, just running workers over, kicking robots.
We all get fork trucks. Everyone who goes to the door has to drive a fork truck around, just decapitate each other with fork trucks. Oh, I love it. All right, boys and ghouls. That was a lot of fun. Go check out Thanksgiving and have yourself a fun and yummy little Thanksgiving to all our listeners out there. For the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Turkey Day.
All right, bye.
Goodbye.
And I'm Turkey Day.
Turkey Day. I'm just focusing on Turkey Day.
Oh, boy.